All right, welcome to the second episode of the Player to Coach podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hill, and alongside me, my former teammate and co-host, Jordan Alexander. Jordan, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. I'm excited about this second episode. I think it went really, really well, and it was a great conversation.
For sure, it was. We got into a lot of good stuff. So yeah, we had a good friend of mine, Grant Prusator, on. Met him when I was working in Indiana. Just good dude. Uh, played at Indiana State. I don't want to give away his whole story. You guys have to watch the whole thing to get the full story. But played some high level D1. He's a head coach now in Phoenix. Uh, this dude is probably one of the best shooters I've seen in person. Granted, they were in like a men's league, but still, I mean, a shot's a shot. So he's pretty special. What do you think of the conversation, Jordan?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think the biggest takeaway for me is I feel like he has a lot of perspective um, in different situations that he would be able to connect to different players now. Not to give away his story, but I feel like there's certain things that happened to him throughout his playing career that he could relate to other people about in multiple ways. So I thought that was really cool. It sounds like he has some good experiences and a lot of things that he learned throughout his time playing. So yeah, it was great.
Right. Yeah, he's dealt with a lot of adversity in a lot of different ways. It's cool to see him in certain moments of his career, look like he's living the dream, and then some moments it seems like the world might be crashing down. But just a persistent guy, really good dude. But yeah, let's get into the podcast. Here we go. Very good. All right, what's going on, everybody? This is our second installment of the Player to Coach Pod. Super excited to bring on a guest who got to work with a little bit in Indiana. Dude who's just super awesome, just an absolute sniper. We got Grant on the show. Grant, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you guys having me on. How are you guys doing?
Doing great, doing great.
Doing good. Good.
I'd like to start off the show with a little bit of an icebreaker, and mine is just like, can you talk a little bit about whatever your greatest shooting performance is? Because from my experience, I only got to see you play in our men's league, and you couldn't have picked someone who could just show up and just like t-shirt, sweatpants looking dude who like, we'll see what he does, and just absolutely slaughters everyone from the 3 point line. It was incredible. So tell me about whatever your greatest shooting performance is.
Oh man, probably the best ones that have ever happened were not in actual games, but like in practices or in the open gym settings or the rec leagues where there's no stats and nobody ever believes it.
Mm.
But the one that comes to mind was probably the when we went for. So I played junior college. We went to the national tournament and we ended up playing against the eventual champion. But in the second half, I think I had eight. I was like 8 for 9 from three, and had like 27 points in the second half. And it was one of those moments where it was like you're just unconscious. Like anything you throw up, you just feel like it's going in. So
Jeez,
probably that.
that's awesome. Um, that's so cool. I first of all, I love that feeling, and that's something that um, like that's probably the feeling that I miss the most about playing is just that feeling of like being unconscious, like that feeling you can't really do in any other situation or scenario, and I miss that a lot. But really quick, can you just paint us a picture of your childhood real quick, just kind of where you grew up,
Yeah,
family situation, kind of how you got into sports?
yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a small town, Rochelle, Illinois, which is about an hour and a half west of Chicago. And it's really like we had only 10,000 people, so you were almost forced to play every single sport. So I played baseball, football, basketball, soccer growing up, and that's just how the entire town was. Like you were competing against the same kids in the same sports, and it was you were on a team with one kid one season, then you switch to baseball. Now you guys are rivals, and it's funny how like I don't know, being in a small town like that makes you competitive just by nature. Um, but
Nice.
I didn't start taking basketball serious till like fifth grade.
Hmm.
Yeah, tell me, I don't know too much about you yet, Grant, so I'm really interested to kind of hear your path. So you started to take basketball serious around fifth grade. Tell us more about that. And like, when did you start taking it serious about wanting to play college, and what was that progression like?
Yeah, so it's funny. I mean, it's funny because like the Space Jam, I was watching Space Jam one day and I was like in fifth grade. So I'm watching Space Jam and I was just like, you know what? I want to be in the NBA. And my dad's like, well, if you got to go to the NBA, then you need to go outside and start shooting. So I'm like, okay. So then I went outside, shot in the driveway. And he's like, well, if you really want to make the NBA, like you got to start getting up before school. So then like fifth grade, I started getting up at 5:30 in the morning with him, and he was the principal or superintendent at the time at our school district. So he had keys to the gym. So he would go in at 6, and I would go with him. We would shoot from like 6 to 7:30, and then we would go to school. And that habit really stayed with me. Now I'm 27, and I'm still getting up like that. But it's like so I started doing that in fifth grade. Did it all through high school, and then high school is kind of where and I was one of those dumb kids where I thought when I was in seventh grade I should be playing on the high school team. Where like you can't physically do that. You're just too small. Like I was 4'5", like 4'7". Like it's not possible.
That's relatable. Yeah.
But like so I was not cocky in a sense, but I just always thought that I could do that. And then so when I got the chance as a freshman, I actually got to play varsity in their second game and had like 24 points just as like a guy that they just threw in. And then from there, uh, I played varsity ever since then. I don't know how far you guys want me to go through my career. I don't know.
Yeah, real quick before you dive too much into high school, I was looking. I like to do a little bit of research before we get into these, and I'm gonna just read off a few stats real quick. So in high school, you set the school record for hitting 95 threes in one season. Also, a school record of hitting 225 threes in your career. And then you also shot 85% from the free throw line. One could say that that would describe you as a shooter, first of all. Just talk to us about your high school experience, kind of how that prepped you up until your senior year when you ended up getting an injury. And just kind of talk to us about your high school career and what that injury meant to your senior year.
Yeah. So my high school career, growing up, and I don't, from where I'm from, my high school, we don't have a lot of guys that go Division 1. We don't have a lot of people around us, so like I never knew what that path would look like. I just thought, if I played varsity, if I did well enough, I would end up going to North Carolina, which was my dream school. Which is, it's that going to a school like that's almost impossible, especially as like a 6 foot white dude. I mean, I'm not saying that nobody can do it, but like there was nobody that like I could realistically look at and be like, that's where I want to be. So for me, I just thought like if I played varsity, it would happen. So from my freshman year, I was playing, and I was kind of in a situation where I was on and off varsity. So my coach, and I love him to death. He's a great guy, but he would like, I would be practicing with the varsity, and he wouldn't like my practice, so he would be like, you know what, you're playing a freshman game tonight. And so then I would have to like go get dressed, and I would be in the auditorium or the oxygen playing the freshman game. Or it would be a situation where he didn't like how I practiced, so I would play the sophomore game that Friday night. And then if I did well in the sophomore game, I would play varsity. So it was like constantly an up and down battle. But I think that actually served me well because it kind of taught me, to deal with that kind of thing. Like a coach is not just gonna, because you're good, gonna let you get away with things. He's not gonna. He made sure I was every single day locked in at practice, and if I wasn't, I would suffer for it. And I think that kind of helped me long in my career to be able to deal with coaches saying, um, I'm trying to think of like the nicest way possible. They chew your. Can you curse on this?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Okay, like they just chew your ass. Like it prepared me for being able to like understand that and hold that in college. When it happened, it wasn't like the first time. So that was my freshman year. Then we had the same coach my sophomore year, and we had a really good team that should have probably won. What we have is a regional. So in Indiana is different. You guys have or sorry, I speak Indiana terms because we connect on that level.
Yeah.
But the sectional, then the regional. Illinois has the regional, then the sectional.
Hmm.
So We probably should have won that regional, but we ended up losing it. But I think I averaged like 13 points or 15 points around there in my sophomore year. And then we lost in the championship game. And then we came back, and that coach had actually left. And we were bringing back everybody, basically. So it was like a situation where we thought we were going to take that next jump. And now all of a sudden we got a new coach. But luckily, that coach ended up being like my neighbor. So I had a real close relationship with him. And we ended up having another like incredible season. Probably should have won the championship. We were up 20 going into the fourth quarter of the regional championship and ended up blowing that. So like I had like a highs and lows, and that was a situation too where I figured like I always thought like if you make a state run, that's where you get scouted. You make a state run, like coaches will start calling and this and that. So it was like year after year was just another heartbreak, another heartbreak. So it kind of kept me locked in the gym at that point. Uh, just trying to like almost obsessively get to that championship.
Hmm. Grant, did you play on the AAU circuit at all in high
I
school?
it I bounced around a little bit. I played for a team in Rockford when I was in middle school and then high school, and then going into my senior year, I got offered to play for the Illinois Warriors, which used to be historically they used to be one of the better teams in Chicago. They had guys like Dwayne Wade, Andre Iguodala, John Shire. But then they kind of had like a falling out when Mean Streets and Mac Irvin Fire came along. So they kind of
Hmm.
dropped into that tier. But, that pays the way for a guy that's from no name Illinois to be in a
For
certain.
sure. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that injury your senior year. What happened, and how did that change or affect your recruiting process, or what all did that all look like?
And so that injury actually like absolutely killed every single look that I probably was getting. So I wasn't a kid I didn't have any stars, I didn't have offers, but I was starting to get a little bit of looks. Like I had a Northern Illinois coach called me that summer, and we talked, and he showed like a little bit of interest just because I was 30 minutes away. Rice down in Texas started showing a little bit of interest, and then it was like I was averaging 25 at the time, and it was like my third game of the season, and it was unfortunate too because it was like a freak accident like that. Um, we were stalling at the end of the first quarter to get the last shot, and a guy was probably like, not I don't think he was anywhere close to me. He was just standing there. So I'm just standing holding the ball. Next thing you know, ref calls 5 seconds, and it's like, okay. So then they go down and like with like 10 seconds, throw up some prayer. I'm just like buzzer goes off. I'm watching it. Two dudes collide into each other and fall back into my knee, and it just like buckles. So like, yeah. So I go down and I'm like just praying like that it's not something serious. So I just try and like play it off, but like I tried to stand up and it just like wobbled. And I was like, oh man. So like I was in a bad place at that point, and I thought my season was over. But luckily, it was only a MCL tear, so I got to come back with like a week left in the season.
So that was during your high school season, like during like to wrap up your high school career.
Yeah, that was my second. Yeah, that was my senior year. So I got to
Wow.
finish out. I played like 7 games my senior year or something along those lines, and then I came back right before the playoffs had started, and actually had a really good game against Sycamore, and then tore or pulled my hip flexor going into playoffs in practice. So it was like I couldn't even because I probably came back too soon. I didn't. I rushed the rehab um, and came back way too soon, and then ended up pulling my hip flexor.
Dang.
So I
So
every single coach after that.
so what was it like for you? I guess immediately after that, you wrapped up your high school career. You ended up playing college ball. So and you said recruiting kind of died down. So
Hmm.
what was the progression like? How did you pick it back up?
So the recruiting, I mean, it was funny too because I always had the dream of playing Division 1. So when that injury happened, I remember I was sitting in a chair in my basement, icing my knee, and my dad like had a serious conversation with me, like, maybe you should start looking at other options. Like Division 1 isn't going to happen. You should start looking at Division 3. And I don't knock Division 3 at all because I know those guys are straight like hoopers. And people are crazy to think that they can just walk onto that. I heard you guys talking about that last time. I fully agree. People are crazy if they think they can just walk onto a D3 team and hoop. Like those guys will eat them alive. But my mind was still where I wanted to play Division One, and I didn't want to let go of that. And so that was a really tough conversation with my dad. But then when I kind of made it clear, like, no, I'm not done with that, we kind of started looking at the junior college route. So I actually was reaching out to every single junior college in Illinois, and we ended up going to like a visit on one. And I remember we were playing, like they had me on a visit to play open gym. This was after the season, so I had healed up. I was getting back to playing. The coach of this junior college like sat me down and was like, "Yeah, you're just not good enough to play here. You're not good enough to. We got two guards on our team that are going to go Division 2. I don't see you playing over them at all. So this is not a good fit." And that like shattered me too, because at the time I'm like, man, I can't even get on a junior college team. like,
Right.
and I'm feeling like the injury part of it, but it's like a reality check. So then I had another visit set up with Highland Community College, and I went, and it was one of those situations that me and Josh talked about at the beginning where I just couldn't miss. Like I was hitting everything, and there was a D1 coach from Cal State Northridge at the practice, and he was watching, and he was like, "You don't need to be paying for college. Like you need to go junior college, and then you need to go Division 1." Like so that was like a confidence boost in itself. So I committed like I think that day to Highland, and then from there it was. I mean, and then we get into the college scene, but it was rough. I mean, I didn't talk to any Division 1 coaches after that. I went straight into the junior college route.
I'd I'd imagine that that creates a different level of motivation, a different level of wanting to prove something or somebody wrong. Talk to us a little bit about your headspace during that year when you're at Highland, because I'd imagine, I mean, your mindset is set on, I'm going D1, all these things. The knee thing happens, and then obviously you get told like, hey, sorry, not a good fit here, probably won't play. Just talk to us a little bit about your headspace over that year and kind of what you went through as a player and as a person. I mean, because going from a place like Highland straight to D1 is pretty incredible. And like obviously, it's not just talent that does that; it's a lot of mindset stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, and junior college in itself is just a complete animal that can actually eat a lot of kids alive, just if they don't take it with the right mentality. Because it is being thrown into a real life situation. I mean, I was put in an apartment where it wasn't just college kids. It wasn't like a dorm. We were with like families. We were with, I think, uh, the the apartment above me, like halfway through the year, got raided by the police for like drugs. The Like it was just a situation that, from me, small town kid, grew up with a good family. Like I was just thrown into this real life situation where I didn't even have a roommate. Like I was just in an apartment by myself. So it was a lot of strictly basketball. Like waking up, I'm going to the gym, which was a YMCA across the street, getting shots up, going to class, and I'm going right back to the apartment. And so it was, and I didn't even have, like, I wasn't a video game person. I don't even think I had a TV. I had a mattress that was on the floor with a laptop. So I literally just watched Netflix, hoop, go to school. And that was it for an entire year. But I always like felt like the hard work would pay off. I always felt like if I just, because they tell you at, like in junior college, if you just make it to the national tournament, you'll go to Division 1. Every coach will be there. So that was always like the mindset of getting there. Just got to get there. We just got to stay locked in, and we just got to get there. And we actually had a really good team that probably should have had like 4 or 5 guys go Division 1.
Nice. So, obviously, you went to the national tournament that year. Tell us a little bit about that season. What was the trajectory of your how you were playing? Were you killing it? You had your ups and downs. What was it like for you?
So I had and I got extremely blessed in a sense of I was with a lot of guys that were getting looks from high major teams that didn't have the grades. So like one kid was there and he was getting looks at from Alabama and just didn't have the grades. So we were with high level players. So when we're going into these games, we're blowing teams out, and we're playing well, blowing teams out, and everything's looking like we're going to the tournament. And for me, as a freshman, I wasn't getting any playing time. Like I was barely playing at the beginning of the season. And we had a guard that was ahead of us that ended up going to Eastern Illinois. He was real good. He's like a real good player, could get to the hoop, could shoot, could pass. Like he was a pass first point guard, like incredible player. And then I think it was probably like 10 games in, he tore his ACL, which then opened up like that shooting guard position, which then I filled and ended up averaging like 13, 15 right away.
Mm-hmm.
Just shooting, because we had guards that could get to the paint and kick, and they were great at passing. We had bigs that were able to drive and kick, so everybody was playing unselfish, which is just perfect for a shooter. So I actually landed in a very fortunate situation there, and then from then it happened with that game that I was telling you about down in Highland, or down in Hutch, which is the national tournament, where I had 27 in the second half, and then coaches started calling more after that.
Would you credit that to like taking advantage of the opportunity in regards to that? Would you credit that to like your work ethic and your routine on a daily basis up to that point?
Yeah, I think yeah, I say most of it came from just being prepared in the routine. But in my head, I was looking at it as a 2-year plan. So I was going to the gym thinking, this is what I'm going to do next year. I got to stay ready for this year, but I'm trying to get better for next year, because that, like, most of them were going to graduate. They were going to look for the freshmen to step up. So, and I even remember telling my dad on the phone, like, if I have to come back another year, like that's fine. Like I'll come back here for two, because it's been a real good situation. The team has been great. Um, so part of it was just kind of staying ready, but there was never part of me that was like, I'm not getting playing time, like I'm going home, or I'm not getting the playing time, so I'm gonna not go to practice. Like I always thought that it was, if you're not playing, you need to be a good teammate. You need to still be in the gym working. You need to still stay ready for your time, because it can all happen in one game, right? You get 5 minutes. For me, I'm like, if I get 5 minutes, I can knock down two, three threes in that time, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a big time staying ready. And I think a lot of kids don't understand that now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really important. So how'd you end up at Indiana State?
So for that, after that game, it all happened within like a week span. I got calls from different coaches. Indiana State invited me down for a visit the next weekend after we got done with the tournament. And then I went down there. They told me on the visit that they were going to offer me. And they said basically I had like a week to think about it. Otherwise, they were going to offer it to somebody else. And as a kid that had no offers, went through that injury, I was like, man, I might not even whiff another offer. So I scooped it up real quick. I didn't want to take any chances losing that.
That's cool. What was your experience like there? Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, my experience at Indiana State was a lot of highs and a lot of lows. For instance, like the first year that we got down there, I was a sophomore. I was still in that mentality of I wanted to play at the NCAA tournament. I wanted to be this big time player, that they see on all the highlights when you think of March Madness, like the one shining moment. I always had a dream of being in that thing. So I was thinking like my role going into it was going to be a lot bigger than what it was. And then so when I got there, it's like you realize, oh, you go from being, the top dog in high school to now you're at junior college where you're kind of like this bench player. Then all of a sudden now you're a starter, and now it's like you're back to like the 13th man. And so it's a lot of, I was trying to learn from the seniors, attach myself to guys that were hardworking, the leaders, just so I could learn and be like that when I was older. And for the first year, it really panned out. I was getting decent minutes. I was probably around like 7, 8 minutes a game, and average, I think it was like 3 points or something like that. Like nothing crazy, but I was getting in games. I was getting shots. Got to be on national television. Um, so that experience was wonderful. And then my second year, my minutes kind of reduced, and I could kind of feel it. It was weird. So like halfway through the year, my second year, there was like a shift, and I started feeling like on the court, it was like there were certain drills I would just get held out of, you know. And so it was kind of like getting a feeling of, man, maybe I'm not like meant for this level of basketball. Maybe I'm not meant for this team. Maybe the coaches hate me. Maybe like, you got all these things going through your head. And so like that same mentality that I had in college or the freshman year where I wasn't playing was a little bit different. Um, and so I kind of, and I take full credit for this now. I got wrapped up in the college lifestyle. Now I mean, I don't know how deep do you guys want me to go with my journey?
Hey man, go for it. Dive in.
Yeah, as comfortable as you are.
All right. So, and I'll just say this because I don't want like this is why I get into training because I don't want kids to go through kind of what I went through because I never had anybody to guide me and say, "Look, man, you need to stop going to the parties. You need to get back in the gym." I never had somebody that would tell me that kind of thing. And I say that, but I was still like, we used to keep track how many minutes you would get in the gym, and I was still at like 23, 21 extra minutes or extra hours a week in the gym outside of practice. So I was like the second in line. So like when I say I wasn't working hard, I wasn't working as hard as what they saw the previous year, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So with that whole situation, they thought I wasn't working as hard. I wasn't getting a lot of minutes. They thought I wasn't focused on basketball as much, which was probably true. Like now that I'm a coach and I see my own players, like the stuff that I was doing, where I thought, well, it's fine because it's a balance, you know. I'm still at practice every day. I'm still one of the hardest workers. I'm still at every single weight session, but there's that mental being locked in part, and I just wasn't that. And the coaches saw that, and so after my junior year there, we had our big man actually ended up tearing his Achilles in the off-season workout. So then they had to look at trying to bring in another big because they had already signed their new guys. So now it was like, oh, we need to do something to free up a scholarship. And unfortunately, you look at for them, they probably looked at me as a guy that was already seeing his way out. He was already starting to disengage and not work as hard. So they probably thought like, okay, we'll just not bring him back. So I had a postseason meeting with the coaching staff. They told me they weren't going to renew my scholarship and that I could either come back as a walk on or I could transfer. And that was like a huge wake up call for me. At the time, I was real frustrated with them. I thought that they had done me wrong. But thinking about it like now as a coach, I'm like, it makes sense. Like it makes perfect sense why they did what they did and why they chose me. Um, but at the time, it hurt a lot. So I went into like almost like a mentality where like I wasn't gonna let that happen at the next school. So I ended up transferring, and like from there I was like locked in on basketball.
Yeah, that's crazy, crazy story. And I feel like I've had players or met players that know other guys with similar situations. You kind of talked about getting back to that mentality, maybe losing that, that second year at Indiana State. What did it? Obviously, that conversation, losing your scholarship, kind of jolted that. But why else do you think that you got locked back in? Like, was it the motivation of wanting to be a good basketball player? Was it the motivation of wanting to prove someone wrong? What was that like for you?
I think it was. I mean, I think it was uh, a lot of wanting to prove people wrong, um, but also like it was. It. I felt like mentally, I felt like I disrespected my younger self, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like I had put in so much work just to get to that point that I had, and it's crazy because it's only like when you look at it, it's only 1 year of really like falling off. I don't even want to say falling off that much because I don't want people to get it wrong. I wasn't like going crazy at parties. I wasn't like not showing up to practice. I wasn't showing up to practice drunk or anything. But I was like, uh, I was a college kid. I was,
for sure.
you know, I
Yeah,
was going to bars on a Saturday night if we played Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon after the game. Then I would go out. But that wasn't in line with what the coaches wanted. And you're a college coach now too, so you understand like your job's on the line when you're a college coach.
yeah,
So that takes a shift too to really look at it like, oh, I'm helping a business. Like when you get to a certain level at college, you become a part of a business, and you have to
Mhm.
actually look at your coaches are getting fed, their families are getting fed on how well you perform. They could be out of a job in a year if you're not performing. So if you're doing stuff that's going to take your performance down, right? That's not showing respect to the coaches, that's not showing respect to the program, and that's not showing respect to like what you've done to get to that point. And I felt that 100%. I felt like I let my younger self down, and that took a while for me to kind of get through. But that year that I spent at Arkansas Tech and really like staying in the gym and being a leader, I think helped a lot.
Hmm. Um, let's transition a little bit to the coaching aspect of basketball and what you're doing now. Uh, did you have any sense early on that you wanted to coach when you were done playing, or were you like totally thinking something else after your playing career was over?
I always wanted to be a college coach, and it just the chips didn't fall. When I was graduating from Indiana State, I had a internship lined up at South. I think it was South Alabama, where I was going to go down and be like the intern for the basketball program. And then those coaches actually, after March Madness, got fired. So like I was in May, and I was like, I don't have an internship. I need to get an internship to finish out my degree. So I ended up like linking in onto a boxing gym, and then the boxing coach told me to get into teaching and become a basketball coach. So I actually listened to him, and that's kind of how I transitioned. I always knew I wanted to coach basketball though.
What was your degree in?
Sport management.
Okay, cool. That makes sense then. Awesome. So, what are you doing right now exactly with coaching? You're a high school coach, right?
Yeah, so I'm a head varsity coach at Barry Goldwater down in Phoenix.
Okay. How's that? What's it like running a high school program?
Oh man, it's chaos. It's crazy. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you do everything. You are the person that fundraises, sets up the fundraiser, sets up the budget. You are the one that's got to order jerseys, schedule games. I mean, I took on every single role, and yeah, it's crazy. I can't even begin to explain.
Yeah, that's there's definitely a second level of responsibility once you get to there because it's like yeah you can have the basketball acumen and the experience and all that but you also need to know how to like be an operations person as well because there's the whole other side of running a program off the
Uh,
court.
yeah, when
Well,
you're sick, you just show up. You like show up. They tell you in practices. You can show up, do your thing, and execute that way, or he'll tell you a role. But like, I just got thrust into this head coaching gig where I didn't have anybody to like show me. Oh, here's what you got to do. You know.
Right.
that's cool. Really quick, what did you think it was gonna be like before you got the job? Like you had all these like practice plans ready, have like all these, um, like these are gonna be our mottos for the year. These are gonna be our goals. What was that kind of a mindset versus like, a few weeks in? Where's your headspace at then at that point?
Oh man. So when I got the job, uh, like August, and I didn't know anything about the school. I just like I got the call when I was moving down to Phoenix, and at the time I was pretty much like I'm not gonna teach. I was probably still trying to coach, but I didn't want to teach. And the principal called me, offered a teaching position and the coaching position. I was like, I've never been a head coach. I want to do that. So I'm going into it blind. And so I'm creating like practice plans. And I'm just coming from a program up in Indianapolis called M14 Hoops, who runs like a spring and summer academy.
Yeah.
I had been working with them and running a career, like a curriculum of player development, getting guys better. So like we had different levels. We had varsity, like a JV level, and then like middle school. So I'm taking everything that I had been teaching these varsity guys, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to teach that same thing to these guys, right? And so I have like all these practice plans. I have what I want to teach them, like, and I'm kind of going into detail, like different moves coming off ball screens, different reads, and that. And we couldn't, like, we could not do a 3-man weave. We a right-handed layup, and I was like, I was in lost for words. I was like, I don't even know where to take it from. You know, I'm I like I gotta find a way to be competitive, but like build their skills up. But there's so much to learn in just a single year, and we grew a lot. We got a lot better. We didn't win a single game the entire season, but we improved.
Dang.
What's so obviously you have some perspective on, you know, being around college programs and now with your own high school program. Are there things that you try to relay the message to your current guys about, you know, guys that maybe want to play college? What's important? You know, what are the important things for high school players to work on and off the court if they want to play college ball?
I think the biggest thing is having a training routine and a regimen, and not just relying on the practice. If you only touch a ball during practice, you're not going to be at that level. Hold on one second. Think about a sneeze. Oh yeah, sorry, that's gonna mess up the audio.
You
But
good?
but yeah, no, it's the regimen, it's the routine. I tell those guys all the time, if they want to be good, they need to be there before practice, after practice, and they practice hard. But that took a while for them to really get. But by the end of the year, we were ending practice, and like it would be an hour after practice, I would still have 10 guys in the gym.
Hmm.
That was the cool thing for me to see as a coach, is kind of see that kind of come into play, and really see that how I'm affecting them, because I think a work ethic and just loving the game is huge for these kids that want to play in college.
Sure. Well,
Right.
yeah, and it sounds like you don't, when that happens, when you got guys staying after, it sounds like you don't have to coach effort, which if you're coaching effort, you know, you got a problem, right? So that's a cool thing. Sounds like you're building a pretty good culture there.
We'll see. We'll see. It's crazy out in Arizona. They have what's called open enrollment,
Hmm.
so guys can leave and come and go as they please. So it's a beast.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where they live, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So like an eighth grader can decide to go anywhere, and then so I actually have like two of my better players returning already transferred. They're at
Hmm.
different schools, so it's crazy. It's like a never ending. So it's a different I don't know. It's a different animal. Like you just got to train the people to work with the people that you have and hope that there's around come October.
Yeah.
Right, for
The
sure.
transfer portal has officially hit Arizona high school basketball.
Yeah, crazy. It's
Yeah, just
crazy,
wait for those high school NIL deals. You know, just kidding.
man. I wish when we had it when we were in college.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I believe it's the same in Oregon now. I think my freshman year is the first year where they had the open enrollment thing, and so yeah, me and my freshman class, we had like six dudes who were like, hey, once we're juniors seniors, we can do big things, and there was only me and one other guy by the time we were seniors, so that kind of sucked. But so I feel you on that. We weren't exactly a 0-win team, but we weren't too far ahead of that. I'll say that much.
And
Um,
that's how I feel too. Because it's like you got to kind of recruit your own guys, and it's like how do you recruit your own guys when you're like, stick around, we're gonna be real good next year, And it's like, well, you didn't win any games. It's like, I know, but
right,
you know, here, and this
Yeah.
it's tough.
for sure.
I don't
What
college coach now after like having to see like the recruiting side of it. That's tough.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level. What are some things? I mean, from your high school experience to your college experience, it's pretty clear that um, you're pretty aware of your situation, and you're like aware of the things that you need to improve on. Like you talk about your confidence early, and then just like going out and partying. Like, no, I need to lock in. Like it's a really important skill to have just as a human, but especially as an athlete. So now that you've finished, your year of coaching, what are some things as a coach that you're looking to improve upon this next year?
I think my communication could be a lot better with my own players. I had this, and going into it this first year, I had a mentality of, man, if you don't want to be at practice, if you don't want to be here, then fine. Like, don't be around. I'll focus on the guys that want to be here. And it worked in a sense of by the end of it, you have a group of guys that work hard and want to be there, but then you also miss out on those kids that might just need that tough love. and might just need somebody to hold them accountable and push them. And I think I could do that better and kind of nurture those relationships more. But I'm indifferent on it, but I think I definitely could improve that.
Do you think you want to stay at the high school level? Like that's it for you? And like what's kind of your end goal from here on out? Do you know?
Yeah, so my end goal is, I mean, it's lofty, it's high, but I would love to be like a player development coach in the NBA. Right now, I have my own player development company business that I started out here, which that in itself is a whole, that's probably a tougher, more uncomfortable thing than playing college basketball or playing on a big stage than I've ever had to do. But I would love to build that company up to a point where it's one of the highest quality training companies in Phoenix, and then hopefully that can lead to other opportunities, either player development as a college coach or player development at an NBA level.
What are the challenges that come with that, with your company?
Man, the biggest one is like just getting people to train, to be honest, and just getting players. Like I'm coming out here, I don't know a soul. I'm just going to AAU tournaments and talking to families. And it's funny too, like a quick story. So like when I first came out here, I was fired up to like start my own training business. So I got down here first weekend. I went to an AAU tournament, was talking to parents, and it's tough to like just randomly walk up to somebody and start talking to them when they don't know who you are. Like that's nerve wracking. Then they find out you're a trainer and they think you're just trying to get money from them. So they'll just like walk away mid conversation. Or I've had parents just be like, look, man, I'm good. Like, and then they feel like anything you say after that's just like a business
Yeah.
conversation, you know?
Yeah,
So that gets awkward. But then I got 3 kids on that first tournament. So I was like on an all time high.
Mm.
And then I could not find a gym that would allow me to rent to train. So like I'm having to call these parents every weekend and be like, I couldn't find a gym this week. Like I'll try again next week. Like I'm sorry. And then eventually I lost like everybody.
Mm.
And then it took me like 3 months to really find a gym that was like had availability, would rent to me. And now it's like starting to build slowly build up. But getting gyms and getting people is the toughest thing.
Mm.
yeah. I was definitely thinking of getting gym time. Just definitely like where I'm located at. That's been a thing here my whole life. Because basically, it's just like the high schools and middle schools, and it's tough to get into those. They don't
Yeah.
always want to let the public in. So,
And I
yeah,
talked to they were like, it's 120 an hour. I'm like, I can't make a parent pay 100, like a parent's
Jeez.
not gonna pay 150 an hour to train with somebody they don't know.
right.
Like I just can't even ask a parent that. So I like to find an affordable gym.
Yeah,
Was
it's tough.
crazy, Josh, and you might relate to this a little bit. When I first got to Indianapolis, I tried to do the same thing, and Pac told me $30 for an hour. And at the time, I had never trained anybody. I had never negotiated a gym. I heard 30 an hour, and I was like, I can't do that. That's too much.
I feel that. Here, actually, that reminds me. This is something for me in particular that I wasn't. Well, first of all, I didn't know too much about the pack, and their programs that they're running out there. And when I kind of found out that because I started there as an intern, kind of learning the sports programming side, kind of the back end of the sports business. But they're like, yeah, but you got to coach if you're going to come here. Like, we need you to help out. I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna be coaching these little kids. Bro, coaching little kids is so difficult.
Oh
Like,
man,
really, because you go in thinking, like, yeah, I've got some, play really well in high school, like, got a little bit of college experience. Like, yo, this is going to be easy. And then you're like, all right, let's do this jump stop, jab, here, do this. And you're like, what's that? You're like, oh. So, like, having to learn how to explain to someone who has no, like, a little kid who has no basketball experience, like, really challenges your brain. Like, I I'm curious what your progression there was. Like, was it like boom, like I got these kids doing what I want, or is it like a little bit of a learning experience for you?
oh man, it was a learning experience because their attention spans are so small. like if you tell one kid to do one thing, the rest of the 10 are not gonna hear you. So like you have to say things 5, 6, 7 times, and you just have to be cool with that. Like when I first came in, I was like trying to be like, like the high school coach where I say one thing and I'm like, don't make me say it again. And he's like are just like looking at me like, what do you mean? We didn't even hear, like they did not even process it the second or third time. So like it was a headache, but working for M14, like they taught me how to do it in an engaging manner and keep kids activated, and like they really like groomed me and really like they had me in the gym coaching like nobody, literally there was no kids, and they were like telling me what to say, how to say it, and I would have to like role play it,
Hmm.
and then they would critique it and be like, no, that's not good enough, you need to have more energy, you need to have like more, you need to be louder at this point and then quieter at this point, and they like taught me how to like, it's crazy the amount of science that they like put into it, but like
Hmm.
now I feel like I'm really good at it, and that's not to toot my own horn. Feel like I feel like after talking to myself enough in an empty gym that I'm comfortable doing it, if that makes sense.
Right. That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard of that. That's pretty
It,
fascinating.
it's an experience, but it works. I mean, it helped me a 10 like thousand times, and then they started putting me in groups of like where I would have 30 like little kids, and when you see them like locked in and engaged with what you're saying, you're like, okay, it's like what they're teaching you is working.
Hmm. That's cool.
That's
Yeah.
really neat.
All right, man. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Dude, you were a great guest today. We got into a lot of things I honestly didn't think that we were gonna get into, but I super appreciate that. I think you bring a really cool perspective to a lot of different people who, um, might find themselves in the same situation, then find themselves lost. Like after a crazy injury like that, after getting told, scholarships getting taken away, those can be really pivotal moments in somebody's career. And like, thankfully for you, like it's turned into more motivation, correction, getting more on the right path. But I know for a lot of people that can mean like, maybe this isn't for me, or hey, I checked off the basketball thing on my list. Let's just see what's next. So I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot of cool stuff from this conversation, dude. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anybody has any questions or seeking any guidance, man, I would love for them to reach out. I mean, that's why I get into training, man. I want to help the next generation of hoopers kind of with their path and their journey. So they can reach out to me. Feel free to contact me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Just search Grant Prusator. I think it's Coach Prusator on Twitter. With any questions.
For sure. We'll go ahead and plug your info so people can find that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. I know I talk a
Yeah.
lot. I appreciate you guys letting me go.
That's what we need. That's what we need.